One sunny afternoon, as Kayla, a high school student, sits on her porch strumming her guitar, she notices a moving truck pull up next door. A new family is moving in, and among them is a girl about her age with a guitar slung over her shoulder. Kayla's heart skips a beat. With a shy smile, Kayla approaches her new neighbor, who is busy helping her parents. "Hi, I'm Kayla. Do you need any help?" she offers, her voice warm and inviting. The girl looks up, her eyes lighting up with surprise and relief. "Hey, thanks. That'd be great. I'm Rin, by the way," she replies, handing Kayla a box labeled books. As they carry boxes into the house, Kayla can't help but notice the guitar peeking out from one of Rin's bags. "You play?" she asks, nodding towards the instrument. Rin's face breaks into a grin. "Yeah, I do. Do you?" Kayla nods enthusiastically. "Absolutely. We should jam together sometime." From that moment, an unspoken bond begins to form between them. It is as if the universe has brought them together, sensing their mutual need for companionship and understanding. Over the next few weeks, they become inseparable, like two peas in a pod. One evening, as the sun dips below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood in Eagle Rock, Los Angeles, Kayla and Rin sit on the porch, guitars in hand. They strum harmonies and sing songs, their voices blending seamlessly in the twilight. "You know," Kayla says, pausing to adjust a string, "I've always wanted a sister, someone who gets me, you know?" Rin looks at her, her eyes softening. "Me too. Moving around all the time, it's hard to make real friends, but here, it feels different. You feel different." Kayla smiles, a wave of warmth washing over her. "I'm glad you moved here, Rin. I feel like we were meant to be friends." As the weeks turn into months, their bond deepens. Kayla finds in Rin the sister she has always longed for, someone who shares her passions and understands her in a way few others do. In the quiet moments, when the world seems too loud and chaotic, Kayla will reflect on how lucky she is to have found Rin. She realizes that true friendship isn't just about being there for the good times, but about understanding and accepting each other's vulnerabilities. Days later, in the cozy ambience of the dining room, bathed in the warm glow of a chandelier, Kayla sits nervously as her mother, Diane Robbins, skillfully wields her fork. The clinking of cutlery against porcelain is the only sound that fills the room, until Diane breaks the silence. "Kayla," her mother begins, her voice measured and deliberate. "Tell me more about this friend of yours, Rin." Kayla's heart skips a beat. She knows this is coming. Her mother has been observing their interactions closely, her sharp gaze like a searchlight probing into Kayla's life. Diane is a striking woman, with dark brown eyes that can harden with disapproval, framed by a cascade of chocolate-colored hair that falls neatly around her shoulders. Tonight, those eyes hold a sternness that makes her more intimidating than attractive. Kayla hesitates, swirling her fork in her untouched salad. She knows her mother's standards are high, her judgments swift and exacting. She takes a deep breath, summoning her courage. She's amazing, Mom," Kayla begins tentatively, her voice gaining strength with each word. "She just moved in next door, and she's really into music like me. She plays the guitar beautifully and has an amazing voice. She's smart, too. She helps me with my algebra homework and we talk about books and stuff." Diane arches an eyebrow skeptically, her expression unyielding. "Music, HM? You know how I feel about wasting time on frivolous hobbies. And this Rin girl, does she have any focus on her studies?" Kayla's heart sinks. She feels a surge of protectiveness over Rin, who has quickly become her confidant and closest companion. "Mom, Rin is really smart. She's going through some stuff, adjusting to the move and everything." Diane purses her lips, unconvinced. "I want to meet her, Kayla. Bring her over one of these days." Kayla's mind races. Introducing Rin to her mother felt like leading a lamb to the lion's den. She knows her mother's expectations are high, and no one ever seems to measure up. "Mom, I don't know if—" "It's settled then," Diane interrupts firmly, cutting off Kayla's protest. "Tomorrow evening, invite Rin for dinner. I want to see for myself what kind of company you're keeping." Kayla nods reluctantly, her stomach twisting with anxiety. She knows that tomorrow's dinner will be a test, not just for Rin, but for their friendship and herself. As her mother continues to scrutinize her with those piercing dark eyes, Kayla vows silently to stand by Rin, to defend her against any judgment that might come their way. The rest of the meal passes in strained silence, each bite of food heavier than the last. The tension in the air is palpable, an unspoken challenge hanging between mother and daughter. As Kayla clears her plate mechanically, she can't help but wonder if tomorrow will bring understanding or deepen the rift between her and her mom. The next morning, as the sun spills golden light through her window, Kayla feels a knot of anxiety tightens in her stomach. She knows she has to tell Rin about the dinner and her mother's scrutinizing nature. As she meets Rin privately after school, her friend's carefree laugh and warm smile offer a brief respite from her worries. "Rin," Kayla begins, her voice trembling slightly, "my mom wants to meet you tonight. I have to warn you, she's really strict and has high standards when it comes to the people I hang out with." Rin's reaction is a stark contrast to Kayla's anxiety. She flashes a radiant smile, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Don't worry, Kayla," she says, giving her a playful nudge. "Your mom won't be able to dislike me. I mean, come on, I'm the best." Kayla can't help but laugh, feeling some of her tension dissolve. Rin's confidence is infectious, and she takes a deep breath, feeling a glimmer of hope. Evening arrives sooner than Kayla would have liked. As they walked to her house, she felt her palms grow clammy with nerves. The door swings open to reveal Diane, her expression as stern and unreadable as ever. She is in the midst of placing the final touches on the dinner table. To Kayla's astonishment, Rin immediately steps forward. "Good evening, Ms. Robbins," she says brightly. "Need any help with that?" Diane raises an eyebrow but nods curtly. Rin moves with an easy grace, picking up plates and setting them on the table. She chats casually, asking about Diane's day and commenting on the lovely decor of the house. The stern woman gives brief replies, her face a mask of neutrality, but Kayla notices a flicker of interest in her eyes. As they sit down to dinner, the tension is palpable. Kayla's heart pounds in her chest, but Rin's calm demeanor never wavered. She skillfully steers the conversation, drawing Diane into discussions about her work, her favorite books, and even a shared love for gardening. Slowly, the atmosphere begins to thaw. Diane remains stern, but there is a subtle shift in her demeanor. Rin's affable nature and genuine interest in her stories seem to be breaking through the formidable exterior. By the time dinner ends, Kayla feels like she has been holding her breath the entire time. As Rin stands to leave, she turns to Diane with a warm smile. "Thank you for dinner, Ms. Robbins. I had a great time and hope we can do this again." Diane nods, her expression still guarded. Once alone with her daughter, she says, "Your friend is a good kid." Kayla's eyes widened in disbelief. As Rin walks out the door and down the driveway, Kayla feels her heart lift. Her mother has never praised anyone before. In the quiet of her room, Kayla can hardly contain her excitement. She grabs her phone, her fingers flying over the screen as she types out a message to Rin. "You won't believe it. My mom said you're a good kid. She approves of our friendship." As she hits send, a sense of victory and relief washes over her. For the first time in a long while, Kayla feels a deep sense of hope and gratitude. She knows that with Rin by her side, she can face anything, even the formidable Diane. Since that dinner, Rin becomes a frequent visitor at Kayla's house. Instead of meeting elsewhere, they find solace in each other's company within the cozy confines of Kayla's home. Kayla revels in the happiness of having a soul sister who has seamlessly been accepted by her mother. Days turn into weeks, and weeks into months, their bond strengthening with every passing moment. But as the seasons change, so does Rin's bright demeanor. The spark in her eyes begins to fade, and Kayla soon discovers the heartbreaking reason. Mrs. Jones, Rin's mother, is terminally ill. For the first time, Kayla witnesses her strong, bubbly friend crumble under the weight of this devastating news. Rin, who has always been a beacon of light, now finds herself enveloped in a cloud of sorrow. Determined to be the rock Rin needs, Kayla vows to be there for her through thick and thin. Unexpectedly, Diane steps up as well. Upon learning about Mrs. Jones' condition and her frequent hospital stays, Diane starts inviting Rin over more often, She even offers for Rin to stay with them for days whenever Mr. Jones has to juggle work and hospital visits. Kayla finds this setup ideal. It allows her to support her best friend constantly. One afternoon, Rin didn't show up at school, leaving Kayla worried. She hurries home, her heart pounding with concern. As she enters her house to drop off her bag, she freezes in the doorway. There, on the living room couch, is her mother, holding Rin in a tender embrace. Diane's usually stern face is softened with an expression Kayla has never seen before, gentle, nurturing, and full of empathy. Diane speaks in a soothing tone. "It's okay, Rin. You're safe here, and we're all here for you." Rin's shoulders shake with silent sobs, her face buried in Diane's shoulder. The sight is both heart-wrenching and heartwarming. Kayla has always known her mother to be stern and unyielding, but seeing this side of her, this tender, compassionate side, is a revelation. But this motherly side of Diane is not directed toward her own daughter, but to her daughter's friend. Kayla steps into the room quietly, her presence unnoticed. She watches as her mother continues to comfort Rin, stroking her hair and whispering reassurances. Kayla feels a lump in her throat, overwhelmed by the depth of her mother's kindness. The daughter struggles to remain rational rather than emotional as the minutes pass by. Why does her mother choose to show this side of her to Rin and not to her daughter? Kayla's internal conflict brews as she insists on squeezing in her mind that it's because Mrs. Jones is terminally ill and her best friend needs all the help and support she can get. Finally, Diane looks up and sees Kayla standing there. The mother gives a small nod, while her face changes into a masked indifference. The daughter cautiously approaches Diane and Rin, and she joins the embrace with reluctance and turbulence in her heart. Months slip by, each day a shadowy echo of the one before, as Mrs. Jones's kidney disease worsens. The once vibrant woman slowly fades, and before the first snow of winter falls, she succumbs to her illness, leaving Rin motherless. The grief is a heavy cloak that settles over Rin, its weight dragging her spirit down. Mr. Jones, unable to cope, throws himself into his work, seldom coming home and leaving Rin alone to navigate her sorrow. Seeing Rin's isolation, Diane takes action. She prepares a cozy room in their home for Rin, making sure it feels welcoming and warm. One evening, after a quiet dinner, Diane turns to Rin and says, "Rin, I want you to know that you can treat this house as your own. No one can ever replace your mother, but I am here for you whenever you need help." Kayla watches the scene unfold, her heart a tumultuous sea of emotions. She sees the way her mother's eyes soften as she looks at Rin, the warmth in her voice that is seldom directed her way. Understanding Rin's need for support doesn't quell the jealousy gnawing at Kayla's heart. She feels like an outsider in her own home, masked by a facade of acceptance. To gain her mother's approval, Kayla goes out of her way to be especially kind to Rin whenever Diane is around. She helps with chores, includes Rin in every activity, and praises her friend's achievements. Yet each effort feels like casting a pebble into a bottomless well. Diane's attention remains fixed on Rin, her praises reserved for the girl who has become the center of their household. One afternoon, as snow begins to dust the ground outside, Rin and Kayla sit in the living room. Diane enters, holding a tray of hot cocoa. She hands a mug to Rin with a smile. "You've been doing so well in school, Rin. I'm so proud of you." Kayla forces a smile and takes her mug. "Rin is amazing," she says, her voice tight. "She's the best at everything." Diane nods, her gaze still on Rin. Yes, she is. As the evening wears on, Kayla finds herself retreating to her room more often, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. She stares at the ceiling, the weight of her unspoken emotions pressing down on her. The jealousy, the longing for her mother's approval, and the sense of being overshadowed by Rin are all consuming. In the quiet of her room, Kayla finally allows herself to cry, the tears flowing freely. She knows she can't blame Rin for her mother's affection, nor can she fault Diane for wanting to help a grieving child. Yet the feelings of inadequacy and jealousy are real, and they hurt deeply. As days turn into weeks, Kayla struggles to find a balance. She tries to be the supportive friend Rin needs while seeking ways to regain her mother's attention. She begins excelling in school, hoping her achievements will be noticed. But each time, Diane's praise for Rin overshadows her efforts, deepening the wound in Kayla's heart. One evening, as the mother and daughter sit together without Rin, Kayla musters the courage to speak. "Mom, I know Rin is going through a lot, and I want to be there for her. But sometimes I feel like you don't see me anymore." The harshness in Diane's tone cuts through the air like a knife. "I can't believe how selfish and immature you're being, Kayla," she says, her voice filled with disappointment. "Considering Rin's situation and the fact that she's your best friend, I thought I raised you better than this." Without another word, she walks out, leaving Kayla standing there, her heart shattering into a million pieces. It is the final blow to her last hope of being acknowledged and drawing closer to her mother. From that moment, Kayla decides to seek validation elsewhere. She pours herself into her schoolwork, striving for perfection in every subject. Her drive for success and popularity has become her new obsession, hoping that recognition from others will fill the void left by her mother's indifference. She joins academic contests and consistently wins with flying colors. Kayla spends less and less time at home. Her days are consumed with studies and extracurricular activities. She even gives up playing the guitar, a passion that once brought her so much joy, focusing solely on her academics. Her goal is clear: to get into a top university in New York, far away from her mother. Rin notices the growing distance between them and tries desperately to bridge the gap. She makes every effort to reconnect with Kayla, but nothing seems to work. The day she finds out Kayla has given up playing the guitar, Rin feels a pang of desperation. "Kayla, please," Rin pleads one afternoon. "I can see you're hurting. Talk to me. Let me help you like you helped me when I needed it the most." Kayla looks at her with hollow eyes, the sincerity in Rin's words not enough to mend her broken heart. She remains distant and unreachable, a shadow of the friend Rin once knew. One night during dinner, Diane looks at Kayla and smiles. "Your grades are excellent, Kayla. I'm so proud of all your achievements." She pauses, her next words like salt in a wound. "I always knew that playing the guitar was holding you back. Now that you've stopped, everything is working out so well." Kayla's heart clenches, her mother's words crushing her already fragile spirit. She keeps her face impassive, hiding the storm raging inside. Rin, sitting quietly, observes the interaction between mother and daughter, trying to decipher the underlying issue. Despite the accolades and the outward appearance of success, Kayla feels emptier than ever. Yet she continues to wear her mask of indifference, keeping her pain hidden deep within her. Kayla's drive for academic excellence continues unabated. Her achievements are numerous, but they bring her little satisfaction. Rin, determined to understand and help, remains a constant presence, hoping that one day, her friend will let her in again. But for now, Kayla's heart remains locked, the key lost in the tumult of her unspoken despair. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue over the city, the excitement of graduation day lingers in the air. Rin and Kayla, adorned in their caps and gowns, stand side by side, the tassels swaying gently in the breeze. It is a moment they have both anticipated for years, yet it is shrouded in an undercurrent of unspoken tension. Diane, with her dark brown eyes and chocolate hair pulled back into a neat bun, is bustling with pride as she leads her daughters to a charming restaurant to celebrate this milestone. The ambiance is inviting, with the aroma of freshly baked bread and the soft murmur of conversations filling the air. Diane and Rin chat animatedly, their laughter punctuating the evening. Kayla, however, sits in silence, mechanically pushing food around her plate. Her thoughts are elsewhere, a storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. "Kayla, what are your plans now that you've graduated?" Diane asks, turning her attention to her daughter. Kayla glances up, her eyes meeting her mother's with a steely resolve. She takes a deep breath, putting down her cutlery with a deliberate clink. "I got into New York University," she declares, her voice steady but laden with unspoken emotions. "I'm leaving on Monday." The announcement hangs in the air like a thunderclap. Rin's eyes widened with a mix of happiness for her friend's achievement and sadness for the sudden departure. "Why the rush, Kayla?" she asks, trying to bridge the gap between the two. Kayla's gaze shifts to Rin, her expression unyielding. "I've worked hard to get away from this place," she states matter-of-factly. "You wouldn't understand, Rin. You've always been showered with love." The words cut deep, leaving Rin momentarily speechless. Diane's stern facade cracks, revealing a flicker of hurt. "Kayla, please, can we talk about this?" she implores. But Kayla is already rising from her seat, wiping her lips with a napkin. There is nothing more to say. With that, she turns and walks out of the restaurant, leaving behind a stunned silence. Back at home, Kayla moves with a sense of urgency, packing the last of her belongings. Her room, once a sanctuary, now feels like a cage she is desperate to escape. She meticulously folds clothes, her mind racing with thoughts of the future. Hours later, with her bags neatly lined up by the door, she makes her way to the kitchen for a warm cup of cocoa, hoping for a moment of solace. To her surprise, Diane is there, her posture rigid, eyes filled with a mix of sadness and anger. "How do you plan to fund your studies without even informing me about going to New York?" she asks, her voice trembling. Kayla, unfazed, continues preparing her drink. "It's not like you're the only one responsible for sending me to school." "What do you mean?" Diane steps closer, her eyes searching Kayla's face for answers. Then, realization dawns on her. "No. How could you? Kayla, how could you?" Kayla's lips curl into a smirk. Why not? It's a father's responsibility to give financial support. Diane grabs Kayla's arms, shaking her in desperation. "You're out of your mind!" After everything he's done, Kayla's eyes blaze with defiance. "Yes, I don't know what he's done. You never explained anything to me, but I know that you get reminded of him because I look a lot like my father. That's why you cannot love me." Diane freezes, her fierce expression softening into one of anguish. "Oh, Kayla, how could you think that? It's not a thought, Mom. It's a feeling I've had for years. You treat a stranger more like your daughter than you do me. Now I'm giving you the chance to break free from the chains of your past. You won't be forced to be with me now. Don't worry, I won't come running back to you." Kayla's words are like fire, burning through the silence. Without waiting for a response, she turns and calls a taxi. As she drags her luggage out the door, Diane calls after her, tears streaming down her face. "Kayla, please, stay so we can talk about this." But Kayla doesn't look back. "I'll spend tomorrow with my father and leave the next day for New York," she says coldly. "Don't worry or be bothered about me. You've raised me to be independent and responsible, so I won't mess up my life." The taxi's headlights cut through the night as Kayla climbs in, her heart pounding. Diane watches helplessly from the doorstep, the weight of her words and actions crashing down around her. As the taxi pulls away, Kayla feels a mix of liberation and sorrow. She is finally breaking free, but the cost is her relationship with her mother. But then she asks herself if they truly have a relationship as a mother and daughter, or if everything is just bound by the responsibility of raising a child. Inside the cab, Kayla stares out the window, the city lights blurring into a haze. She thinks of Rin and the bond they once shared. She thinks of her father, the unknown figure who will now play a role in her life. And she thinks of her mother, whose love she had always craved but never felt. More than an hour later, the taxi's abrupt halt jars Kayla from her thoughts. She blinks, disoriented, and peers out the window at the gleaming facade of a luxurious hotel. Confusion sweeps over her. "Where are we?" she asks the driver, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "This is the address you showed me on your phone," he replies, his voice steady. Kayla's heart races as she fumbles for her phone. The location her father had sent earlier glowed on the screen, and she realizes it is not a residential address, but rather a high-end hotel. She quickly dials her father's number, her anxiety mounting. When the line connected, a cacophony of loud music blared through the speaker, nearly drowning out her father's voice. "Dad?" Kayla shouts into the phone. "I thought I was staying with you." Her father's voice, strained and distant, fights through the noise. "No, my dear, I'm at work right now. I wanted you to enjoy your day in LA before you leave for New York. Just go and enjoy your freedom. I've wired money to your account. If you want to go around the city and buy some things, go ahead. I'll try to pick you up on Monday afternoon for your flight." Before she can protest, the call ends, leaving Kayla standing in stunned silence. The driver prompts her to step out and offers to help with her luggage. She reluctantly exits the taxi, grabs her bags, and walks hesitantly into the grand lobby of the hotel. The staff greets her with warm smiles, swiftly assisting her to her room. As she enters the suite, her eyes widen in awe. The lavish surroundings are straight out of a movie, with opulent furnishings and panoramic views of the city. She wanders through the spacious rooms, marveling at the luxury she has only ever dreamed of. For a moment, she allows herself to bask in the splendor, trying to shake off the gnawing sense of abandonment. The plush bed beckons her, and she sinks into its softness, feeling a fleeting sense of comfort. But as the night wears on and she prepares for bed, the reality of her decision settles over her like a heavy blanket. Alone in the vast suite, the magnitude of her choice to leave her mother hit her with full force. Tears well up in her eyes, spilling over as she hugs a pillow to her chest. The pain of leaving home, the unresolved conflict with her mother, and the uncertainty of the future all converged, making her feel small and lost in the opulent surroundings. The weight of her emotions presses down on her, and she cries herself to sleep, her sobs muffled by the luxurious pillows. In her dreams, fragments of the past and fears of the future mingle, creating a restless night. The next morning, sunlight streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a golden glow over the suite. Kayla wakes up with puffy eyes and a heavy heart. She lays in bed for a moment, staring at the ceiling, before the memory of her father's words comes rushing back. "Enjoy your freedom," he said. With a resigned sigh, she pushes herself out of bed and decides to make the most of the day. She dresses quickly, opting for a comfortable outfit, and heads out to explore the city. The bustling streets of LA buzzed with energy, a stark contrast to the turmoil within her. As she wanders through the city, she tries to immerse herself in the sights and sounds, visiting iconic landmarks and quaint cafes. She brings a few souvenirs and even indulges in some retail therapy, but the sense of emptiness persists. By late afternoon, Kayla finds herself at a quiet park, watching children play and couples stroll hand in hand. She sits on a bench, letting the serenity of the park wash over her. The laughter of the children reminds her of simpler times, of days when her biggest concern was finishing homework in time to play outside. Her phone buzzes, snapping her out of her reverie. It was a message from Rin. "Thinking of you. Hope you're doing okay. Miss you already." A lump forms in Kayla's throat as she reads the message. She misses Rin too, more than she can express. But the walls she has built around her heart are too high, the scars too deep to heal overnight. As dusk approaches, she makes her way back to the hotel, her steps heavy with fatigue and lingering sorrow. The suite feels even larger and more empty upon her return. She orders room service, hoping a warm meal might provide some comfort. But the food tastes bland, her appetite dulled by the weight of her emotions. Night falls, and Kayla stands by the window, gazing out at the twinkling city lights. She thinks of her mother, of the arguments, and the love that has always been just out of reach. She thinks of Rin, the sister she had found, and then pushed away. And she thinks of her father, a stranger she is now turning to in her quest for freedom. She climbs into bed, pulling the covers up to her chin. The tears come again, but this time they are softer, mingled with a glimmer of hope for a happier future. She cries until exhaustion takes over, and she drifts into a dreamless sleep. Morning arrives, and Kayla's eyes flutter as voices creep into her ears. Her dazed state remains for a while, but upon recognizing the voice of her mother, she snaps to attention and listens intently. Her father's voice joins the fray, so she checks her phone. It's 7 in the morning. "Diane, give me a break. I haven't slept since flying in from Florida," her father pleads. James stands leaning against the wall, the weight of exhaustion pulling at his eyelids. His dark hair, tousles from lack of sleep, falls in disarray over his forehead, shadowing his piercing blue eyes that struggle to stay open. Despite the tired lines etched on his face, there is an undeniable handsomeness about him, a roguish appeal that is hard to ignore. James's broad shoulders slumped slightly, betraying his fatigue, yet his frame remains imposing. A deep sigh escapes his lips as he runs a hand through his messy hair, trying to muster the energy to stay alert. But beneath the sleepy exterior, a storm is brewing. His jaw clenched tightly, the muscles working as he fights to keep his composure. His eyes, though heavy with the need for rest, flashes with frustration and impatience. The polite demeanor that has been his shield for so long is slipping, cracks appearing in the facade. How could you leave a child alone in a big city? What were you thinking, James? Diane's voice is stern and unforgiving. Kayla is not a kid anymore, Diane. She's smart. I trust her. You know nothing about her, Diane snaps. If you truly knew your daughter, she wouldn't have run away in the first place. James bites back. Kayla can bear it no longer. She opens the bedroom door, halting their argument. Her presence catches everyone off guard. Rin, sitting silently with visible discomfort on the large sofa, suddenly stands up. Come on, Mr. Smith, she says, dragging him outside of the suite, leaving Kayla alone with her mother. A long, awkward silence follows. Diane finally breaks it, her voice soft and pleading. Kayla, please, let's talk. Kayla nods and they sit on the sofa. The air between them is thick with unspoken words. Diane takes a deep breath. Kayla, it's true that I despise your father. You're smart. From the few interactions with him and the way he left you alone here, you must have an idea of what kind of person he is. Kayla slowly looks at her mother's face, noticing how Diane has removed her mask of indifference. She sees a mother with emotions reflecting on her face pain, worry, anxiety, and a glimmer of hope. Your father is a nice man, but he is never fit to have a family. He loves music, Kayla, just like you. He is ambitious, and it brought him to places evident in his wealth and lifestyle. He became a music producer through years of hard work, but he never cared that much for me or you. I didn't want you to grow up in an environment where you'd witness us tearing each other apart, so I divorced him. Kayla listens intently, her eyes never leaving her mother's face. Diane continues, I didn't realize that my fear of you growing up to be like him has become a thorn in our relationship. I only wanted you to have a good future, to be responsible, to be happy. I never thought I was pushing you away. Then why? Kayla begins, her voice quivering. Why can you be a good mother to Rin while you remain cold towards me? Diane reaches out, holding her daughter's hand, looking deeply into her eyes, hoping that her sincerity will break through. Because I thought you found her more important than me. I wanted to be closer to her to understand you better. The way I raised you made you close off, and I didn't know where to start to reach out to you anymore. Rin is very expressive. She speaks her mind and comments honestly on what wrongs I do. I saw her as a bridge that could bring us closer. I didn't realize my actions made you feel she was more important to me than you. Diane sighs, her voice trembling. After years of being with Rin, she is like a daughter to me now, but that doesn't mean I love you any less. Kayla, you are my daughter. If you want to go to New York, I will support you, but please, give me a chance to show you how much I love you. Please. I was wrong. Tears stream down Kayla's face as she embraces her mother. I just want your love. I want you to be proud of me. I want to see you smile happily because of me, Mom. I want you to love me. Please love me. I love you, Kayla. I love you, my daughter, Mrs. Robbins responds, rubbing her daughter's back soothingly. Outside the suite, with the door slightly ajar, Rin smiles contentedly, tears brimming in her eyes. Jame's expression turns serious as he sighs deeply. He hands Rin his business card. Surprised, she looks up at him. That's my card. You're part of their family now. I have a feeling they won't reach out to me anytime soon, but just in case, give me a call if you think they need my help. You're a smart kid too, right? Rin's mouth opens to speak, but James turns his back, yawning and fiddling with his phone. After composing herself, Rin gently pushes the door open with her brightest smile. Kayla's arm extends to her, and she runs to hug her best friend. Diane joins the embrace, overflowing with happiness as she holds her two daughters. The next few days pass in a blur. Kayla and her mother spend time reconnecting, sharing stories, and rebuilding the bond that had been strained for so long. They explore the city together, enjoying the sights and sounds of LA. Rin is always there, her presence a constant source of support and joy. Weeks later, On the day of Kayla's rescheduled flight to New York, James arrives to pick her up, surprising her and her mother. He looks at his daughter, his expression a mix of pride and sadness. "I promised to pick you up, right?" He nonchalantly shrugs and smiles. "Kayla, I know we haven't had much time together, but I want you to know that I'm proud of you. You've grown into a strong, independent young woman. If you ever need anything, I'm here for you." Kayla nods, her heart swelling with a mix of emotions. "Thank you, Dad. I appreciate it." As they drive to the airport, Kayla reflects on the past few days. She thinks about the conversations with her mother, the time spent with Rin, and the support from her father. She realizes that while her journey is just beginning, she is not alone. She has a family that loves her, even if it is a complicated and imperfect one. At the airport, her mother and Rin embrace her tightly. "Well, miss you, Kayla," her mother says, tears in her eyes. "But we'll be here for you always. Keep in touch. Anytime. I will answer the phone." "Thank you, Mom. I love you," Kayla responds, her voice choked with emotion. As she boards the plane, Kayla feels a sense of hope and determination. She's ready to face whatever comes next, knowing that she has the love and support of her family behind her. The future is uncertain, but she is not afraid. She is ready to carve out her own path, one step at a time.